Good evening, friend. You've reached that quiet seam between day and night when your eyelids outweigh your to-do list, and the world finally stops asking you to be impressive. Tonight you wander in second-person present tense, because it's easier to rest when the story carries you. Machu Picchu waits in drifting cloud, stone and green folded into the Andes like a secret kept kindly. You breathe in damp grass and cool rock, and the air is thinner than your confidence. And here comes the cheeky reality check. If you try to power walk like a motivational poster, the altitude will humble you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and let me know how your day has really been. Your worries, your exhaustion, or even a tiny joy that made you smile. I'm here to truly listen and offer the most sincere, heartfelt advice I can. Now, turn off the lights. Take a deep, slow breath, let your tiredness melt away, and gently close your eyes. Let's drift together into tonight's dreamlike lands. And tomorrow morning, if you still remember, send me a message and tell me what you dreamed. You step forward and the mountain opens like a door that never creaks. The cloud is not politely above you. It is everywhere. Soft against your cheeks, cool on your forehead, damp in your hair. You can't see far, and normally that would make your brain start drafting emergency plans, but here it feels protective, like the world has drawn the curtains so you can finally stop performing. Stone meets your feet. Gray granite, worn smooth in places, steady as a promise. Even through your shoes you sense its chill, the way you can sense cold tile before you fully commit your weight. These steps do not demand speed. They simply exist, and their stubborn calm persuades your shoulders to loosen. You didn't know you were tense until the place around you refuses to rush. Machu Picchu arrives in fragments. A low wall appears, then fades as mist slides past. A terrace edge draws a clean line through whiteness, and the green beyond it is layered. Moss, wet grass, darker patches where the slope turns away from light. A staircase reveals itself, slightly uneven, as if the mountain has kept its own opinion about geometry. You take that as mercy. Perfect stairs would tempt you to sprint, and you are learning already that this place is not impressed by effort that ignores breath. You inhale and your lungs negotiate. The air offers less oxygen and offers it slowly, like a careful host portioning out tea. Your heart keeps a steady beat, but you notice it now, a quiet insistence in your chest and fingertips. It isn't frightening, it's honest. At this altitude you don't conquer awe. You accept it one calm breath at a time. So you choose the wiser rhythm. You slow down on purpose. Your steps soften. You let the cool dampness smooth your face and quiet the heat in your thoughts. The mist changes the rules. Far away becomes irrelevant. Near becomes intimate. Somewhere beyond this cloud curtain the Andes are doing their grand, dramatic thing. But for now you are held in a smaller room made of weather, and the room is kind. The stones begin to settle you. Walls fit together with a precision that feels gentle, blocks shaped and set so closely that the seams almost disappear. You follow a corner line with your gaze and imagine patient hands lifting, placing, adjusting, again and again, without rushing. There is humility in building for people you will never meet. Your own worries, which have been loud all day, suddenly sound embarrassed, as if they realize they are not the main event here. The cloud thins for a moment, just a slow blink, and more of the citadel shows itself. Terraces step down the slope in green folds. Doorways lead into shadow, and the shadows feel cool rather than threatening, like linen out of the sun. Everything looks balanced. Open space, sheltered space, stone paths guiding feet without trapping them. The beauty isn't flashy. It's composed. It makes you want to match it. A small chuckle rises in your chest, quiet and surprised. Of course, the famous city in the clouds teaches you to let go. Of course, you come expecting to be overwhelmed, and instead you are gently unfastened. Your jaw loosens, your face relaxes. You blink slowly, and the mist brushes your eyelashes like a reminder to stop staring so aggressively at life. You pause and listen. No dialogue, no bright announcements, no hurry. Only moisture moving, wind sliding along stone, and a distant suggestion of birds you cannot quite locate. Your mind reaches for labels, then lets them go. Presence is enough. Breathing is enough. You take another breath, and it comes easier now, as if your body has accepted the terms. You let the thin air teach you pacing. You let the cold stone steady you. You let the cloud cover make you feel hidden in the best way. Like the world cannot find you to ask for one more thing. You are here, and that is enough. You are small, and that is relief. You are tired, and the mountain does not judge you for it. It simply holds you in misty hands, and you begin to feel the first gentle pull towards sleep, right between your ribs and the cloud. You keep moving, not because you have a schedule to impress, but because the paths seem to quietly invite you onward, one stone after another, like the world's most ancient lullaby made physical. The mist still holds you, but it loosens just enough to reveal a stairway, and then another, and then a line of terraces stepping down the mountain as if the earth itself has learned how to breathe. Your feet find a rhythm that is smaller than ambition. Step, pause, step, a slight lift of the knee, a gentle shift of weight. You feel your heartbeat not as a problem to solve, but as a metronome guiding you into steadiness. In the city below, wherever your phone is probably still buzzing in spirit, your heart may race out of anxiety. Here it races only because you are alive and walking uphill inside a cloud. Honestly, it's doing great. The stone steps are not uniform. Some are wide, some are narrow, some are just persuasive suggestions that your foot accepts as a step because you'd rather not argue with granite. You learn quickly that the trick is not to dominate the stairs, but to cooperate with them. You shorten your stride. You place your foot fully. You let your ankles soften. And when you do, the staircase stops feeling like a test and starts feeling like a slow, careful conversation between your body and the mountain. No words needed, just mutual agreement. As you climb, the mist slides past you in silky sheets. It beads on your eyelashes again, and you blink with the patience of someone who has nowhere else to be. The air tastes faintly mineral, like wet stone after rain. You inhale, and the breath fills you higher in the chest than usual. You let it. You don't force it down into the belly like you're trying to win an award for Calm Person of the Year. You simply breathe as you are, and the place meets you there. A terrace edge appears to your left, and you drift toward it. The grass is a deep, saturated green, so alive it looks almost unreal in the soft light. The terrace wall is built from fitted stone, each block placed with a confidence that feels quiet rather than loud. There's a kind of tenderness in the way the stones sit together, like they've been told to hold each other up for a very long time and they agreed without complaint. You follow the terrace line as it curves, and your sense of direction becomes less about maps and more about flow. Paths here don't just get you from point A to point B. They shape your pace. They widen where your body might need to slow and look. They narrow where you should pay attention to your footing. They turn your shoulders gently, guiding your gaze toward openings in the cloud that sometimes reveal a slope falling away into whiteness. When the mist thins again, it does it like a slow exhale. The outlines of rooftops and walls sharpen for a few seconds, and you catch the geometry of the citadel, rectangles, trapezoids, clean angles softened by time. Then the cloud closes back in, as if the mountain is saying, "Easy now, don't gulp the view, sip it." You take another set of steps, and the effort makes your thoughts smaller in the best way. The mind loves to build elaborate worries when the body sits still. But when your legs are busy and your breathing has a task, the worries begin to loosen their grip. They don't vanish. They just lose their dramatic lighting. They become ordinary little thoughts again, the kind you can notice and then let drift by like the cloud itself. You reach a landing where the stones flatten out and you pause, not because you're defeated, but because pausing is part of the rhythm now. You rest your hand lightly on a wall. The stone is cool and damp, and it steadies you with its indifferent kindness. You imagine the countless hands that have touched similar stones over centuries. Hands that carried water, hands that carried food, hands that carried babies, hands that carried grief and laughter without needing to announce it. The citadel doesn't feel like a museum tonight. It feels like a place that still remembers being lived in. You resume your walk, following a staircase that climbs toward higher terraces. Each step is a small lift into thinner air, and you can't help but admire how your body adapts when you stop demanding perfection from it. You breathe, you step, you breathe again. The heartbeat keeps time, and in that timing something inside you starts to unwind. A small, sleepy chuckle returns, quiet, private, because you realize how ridiculous modern life can be. You spend so much energy trying to be efficient, trying to be optimized, trying to be impressive, and here the most ancient lesson is simply, slow down or you will feel silly. The mountain doesn't scold you. It just makes haste feel unnecessary. You wander in a gentle loop, letting the terraces guide you along their edges and back toward another set of steps. You notice how the green seems to soften the stone, how the stone frames the green, how the whole place balances itself like a careful breath between inhale and exhale. And as you keep walking, steady, unhurried, you feel yourself settling deeper into the mood you came for. Not excitement, not conquest, not a checklist, but a quiet kind of wonder that makes your eyelids heavy in the sweetest way. The walking makes you pleasantly hollow in the way only fresh air can, like your worries have been scooped out and replaced with a simple, honest hunger. It's not the frantic hunger of skipping lunch while pretending you're fine. It's the gentle kind that arrives after slow steps and thin air, the kind that says, "You are a body, you are living, you deserve warmth." The mist loosens again, and with it comes a subtle shift in scent. Wet stone remains, of course, and green grass, but now there's something earthy and comforting drifting toward you. Steam carrying the quiet promise of food. You follow it without overthinking, because tonight you are practicing trust in small things. Down a path that dips slightly, You find a sheltered corner near the edges of the site where life gathers softly. There is no shouted invitation, no bright menu board screaming for attention. Just a calm, practical presence. People moving with the unhurried competence of those who know the mountain's pace. A small cooking area tucked against the chill, and the sound of liquid being ladled into bowls. You don't need dialogue to understand what's happening. The steam does most of the communication. A bowl finds its way into your hands. Warm, heavy, grounding. Quinoa soup. Pale gold broth with tiny grains that look like little seeds of patience, soft vegetables. Perhaps a hint of herbiness that rises when you breathe over the surface. The heat presses gently into your palms and reminds your nervous system that it can stop bracing for impact. You bring the bowl closer, and the steam kisses your face like a soft towel. Your first sip slows you further. The soup is simple, but simplicity here feels like a luxury. It tastes of earth and sun stored in grains, of water carried carefully, of nourishment designed for altitude and cold. The quinoa has a delicate bite, soft but not mushy, and it fills the spaces inside you that the thin air has been teasing open. You feel your shoulders drop another notch. Your jaw unclenches. Your breath deepens almost by accident. Food does that when it isn't rushed. You sip again, and your body stops negotiating with the altitude as aggressively. It starts to cooperate. It starts to believe you. As you eat, the cloud shifts around you, and the world becomes a quiet stage set. Stone walls appearing and fading, terraces briefly sharpening into focus, then melting back into soft outlines. You sit where you can watch the mist move. It is not dramatic fog rolling in for a movie moment. It's a living thing, patient and continuous, sliding over the mountain like a blanket being pulled up over a sleepy child. You take another sip and notice the sound your spoon makes against the bowl, small and satisfying. The kind of sound that would be annoying in a busy office, but here it becomes part of the landscape's lullaby. You listen, and your mind begins to empty itself again. There is a rhythm to this pause. Sip, breathe, look, sip again. The mountain air cools the tip of your nose. The soup warms your throat. The contrast is strangely soothing, like alternating warm and cool water on tired muscles. You can feel energy returning, but not the frantic kind. It's the steady energy of being fed. Your thoughts wander toward the people who live and work in places like this, whose daily lives are shaped by altitude, weather, and the slow certainty of seasons. You imagine hands washing grains, stirring broth, lifting pots, not as a performance but as routine. Food here is not a trend. It's a quiet survival skill refined into comfort. You lift your gaze to the terraces again, catching a glimpse of how they hold the hillside in place. The steps of earth and stone aren't just pretty. They're practical, designed to grow and store life where life would otherwise slip away down the slope. And as you sit with your soup, you sense the same intelligence in the meal. Nourishment built for this height, for this cold, for bodies that work and walk and breathe thin air. A sleepy chuckle bubbles up, not loud, not disruptive, because you remember how people at home can turn food into a battlefield of opinions. Too many rules, too many labels, too much drama over what is allowed. Here, the soup doesn't care about your online identity. It just wants to keep you warm. You let it, You finish half the bowl and feel that warm weight settle into your belly like a stone placed carefully into a wall. Supportive, stabilizing. You take your time with the rest, letting each spoonful land gently. No rush, no heroic pace, just quiet eating in a cloud, with ancient stone watching over you like a silent guardian. When the bowl is nearly empty, you hold it a moment longer, letting the heat linger in your hands. You breathe in the last of the steam, and it feels like inhaling calm itself. You set the bowl down and stand slowly, feeling more grounded than you did when you arrived. The hunger is softened, the body steadier, the mind quieter. And as you step back onto the stone path, you carry the warmth with you. Not just in your stomach, but in your pace, in your breath, in the way your shoulders now hang as if they've finally agreed to stop carrying everything at once. You step back onto the stone path with the warmth of quinoa soup still settled inside you like a small, dependable hearth. Your legs feel steadier, your breathing less argumentative, and even the mist seems to have relaxed. No longer a wall, more like a curtain drawn for your comfort. You keep your pace slow on purpose because you have learned that Machu Picchu does not reward rushing. It simply lets haste tire you out faster. The stones under your feet are cool and faintly slick with damp, so you place each step with care. Terrace edges appear and fade as cloud drifts past, and the greens on the slopes look saturated, as if the mountain has been freshly rinsed. Then another sound threads into the hush, the gentle click of hooves on stone, approaching at the pace of something that has never once been late. You lift your gaze, and out of the cloud emerges a llama, tall, calm, well-textured like a weatherproof coat nature designed after too many windy seasons. It pauses as if it knows the timing of its own entrance, ears angled forward, eyes half-lidded in serene confidence. You stop because trying to squeeze past an animal with excellent boundaries is how people end up starring in their own private embarrassment. The llama regards you with mild curiosity, the way the mountain regards tourists in general. Present, not impressed, not hostile, simply certain it belongs. A quiet chuckle slips out of you, small enough that the mist nearly swallows it, and you feel the tension in your chest ease. A second llama follows, and then another, and suddenly the path becomes a slow procession. Llama traffic, polite and unhurried. Hooves click, pause, click again. One lowers its head to sniff a tuft of grass daring to grow between stones, then lifts its chin as if remembering it has an appointment with the clouds. You step toward the terrace wall and let them pass, because yielding to calm creatures feels strangely restful. As they move by, you catch the scent of damp wool and clean earth, and you feel a grounded comfort, ordinary life brushing against an extraordinary view. The mist opens just enough to show a few people further along the path, moving with balanced, practical grace. Their clothing is layered for altitude and chill, colors softened by fog, and they carry woven baskets and small bundles that sit against hips and shoulders as naturally as breath. No one speaks. They do not need to. One person lifts a hand in a slow, gentle gesture, an angle of wrist and fingers suggesting you keep to the wider edge while the animals pass. It isn't a command. It isn't a scold. It's guidance offered as quietly as the cloud itself, and you follow it without resistance. You walk along the terrace edge, giving the line space, and you watch the llamas with the kind of attention you usually waste on worries. There will clings in soft curls, darkened slightly by moisture. Their ears flick now and then, responding to wind you can't see. Their bodies move with steady strength that makes your own careful steps look like a rehearsal. You chuckle again, warmer this time, because it is hard to stay tense when a llama looks so calmly in charge of its day. The people nearby continue their work. A strap is adjusted. A basket is shifted from one shoulder to the other. A brief glance checks the animal's line. Everything is competent without being loud, efficient without being frantic. You sense how life here is shaped by altitude and weather, by the mountain's moods and the patience of seasons. Survival in this environment is not a dramatic fight. It's a practiced rhythm, repeated until it becomes calm. You notice woven patterns on straps and baskets, tight geometry in thread, made to endure. The baskets look like they have carried grain, herbs, tools, maybe even bowls like the one that held your quinoa soup. The thought leaves you with a small, steady gratitude that fits this place better than grand declarations. One llama turns its head toward you for a moment, and your eyes meet. There is no message hidden in it, no mystical prophecy delivered through eyelashes. There is only presence, and that presence is oddly comforting. It reminds you that the world is older and wider than your worries, and full of beings who do not care about your deadlines. You take a slow breath, and you let that reminder settle into your shoulders. The mist thickens, then loosens again, drifting across the terraces like a slow tide. In a brief opening, the citadel's stone geometry sharpens. Walls, steps, doorways. Then the cloud closes gently, as if asking you to focus on what is close rather than what is famous. Your feet return to their steady rhythm. Step, pause, step. The quinoa warmth stays with you. The hoof clicks fade forward along the path. You begin moving again behind the procession, not crowding, just drifting in the same slow current. The mountain's quiet rules have become yours for the moment. Give space, move gently, breathe steadily, don't get dramatic. And as you follow the woolly traffic through the cloud, guided by silent gestures and shared pathways, your mind quiets further, less like a spinning wheel, more like a lantern with a steady flame, warm and safe in the mist. You keep floating forward in the same slow current the llamas set, and when the last hoof click fades into the cloud, the path feels suddenly spacious, like someone opened a window in your chest. The mist thins, not enough to reveal everything, just enough to show the terraces properly. Green steps laid into the slope one after another, as if the mountain has been tucked in for sleep and these are the blankets folded with careful hands. You drift toward the nearest terrace edge. The stone wall is cool and damp under your fingertips. Above it, grass stands thick and wet, each blade holding a bead of cloud that trembles when the breeze passes. In this soft light, the terraces look deliberate without being stiff, order made gentle. It's the kind of quiet design that makes you feel small in a comforting way, and also slightly ashamed of how dramatic you become when your phone loads slowly. As you follow the terrace line, you start to understand that the green steps are not decoration for postcards. They are a system. They keep the hillside from sliding. They slow the water so it doesn't steal the soil. And they shape pockets of warmth and shade so plants can live at different heights. You don't need a spoken explanation. The land itself explains. The mountain is steep. The weather changes its mind often, and food does not appear because you wished for it with enough confidence. So people build clever steps, and then harvest in them season after season, letting the mountain do what it can. A few figures move along the terraces ahead of you, steady silhouettes in the mist. They carry woven baskets and small bundles the way you saw earlier, balanced and close to the body, made for long days and uneven ground. No one announces anything. They simply work. One pauses near a narrow channel line where water would travel, running fingers along the stone edge as if checking for a tiny blockage. Another bends briefly near a planted strip, hands close to the grass, adjusting something small with calm fingers, as if even this tiny motion deserves respect. Their movements are economical and practiced, and even without words you feel a quiet welcome, the kind that says you may pass as long as you respect the pace. You take the lower path that parallels the terraces, careful on the slick stone. Your breath stays steady, still a little higher in the chest than usual, still honest about the altitude, but it no longer argues with you. The quinoa soup has done its quiet work, warming you from the inside like a small lamp. Your belly holds that warmth, and your lungs seem to trust it, as if nourishment is proof you are safe. The mist lifts again for a few seconds and sunlight filters through, pale and kind. The terraces brighten, and you can see how each step catches light differently. One strip glows tender green, the next deepens into shadow where the slope turns away. You notice how the terraces create little climates. Sunny shelves, cooler pockets, sheltered edges where moisture lingers. Each one feels like a careful compromise between gravity and growth. You imagine seeds tucked into these steps, roots gripping soil held in place by stone, leaves drinking light that arrives in quick, generous slices. The whole hillside becomes a lesson in patience. How to make a living space out of a difficult slope, how to coax food from thin air and steep ground. Quinoa returns to your mind, those tiny grains that looked like patience in your bowl. It makes sense now that a food like that belongs here. Sturdy, nourishing, unbothered by conditions that would make fussier crops sulk. You let the connection settle. Terraces hold the earth. Soup holds you. The same intelligence runs through both, turning harshness into something livable, even comforting. Time behaves differently beside these green blankets. Minutes don't snap and sprint. They stretch like warm fabric. Your thoughts, which usually try to plan 3 days ahead, soften into one simple sequence. Step, breathe, look, step again. You hear the hush of mist sliding over grass. You hear your own breath like a slow wave. Somewhere far off, a single hoof click dissolves into cloud and disappears, as if the sound itself has decided to rest. You pause near a terrace junction and rest your hand on stone again. The chill travels into your palm, cooling any leftover urgency. Your shoulders sink. Your eyelids grow heavier, not from exhaustion, but from permission. The strange relief of realizing you don't have to be fast to be doing it right. A warm chuckle rises when you remember how respectfully you stepped aside for llama traffic, like a citizen in a woolly little kingdom. It wasn't only funny, it was instructive. The animals moved at the pace the mountain allows. The people moved with them, not against them. Nobody was trying to dominate the day. They were simply living in a rhythm that fits the place. You watch one figure on the terrace shift a basket strap and continue along the green step, disappearing into mist. The weave flashes for a moment, tight, durable, made for repetition, and you think of the repeated acts that keep life steady here. Carrying, tending, checking water, saving seed, cooking simple soup, walking with patience. The terraces are not only a marvel, they are the quiet backdrop of ordinary days. You begin moving again, slowly, letting the terraces guide your gaze and your pace. You let your breath set the rhythm. You let your body choose steadiness over performance. And with each careful step beside those green blankets, you feel the night's calm settling deeper, as if the Andes are teaching you the most practical skill of all: how to let time be kind. The terraces draw you onward until you begin to notice something even quieter than the green steps. A line of water, not dramatic, not loud, just persistent. You hear it before you fully see it. A soft, continuous trickle that threads through stone like a whisper that never runs out of breath. In a place where the air is thin and the clouds drift close enough to touch, water becomes a kind of comfort you can listen to. You follow the sound along a path that bends gently, and there it is, a narrow channel cut into stone, clean-edged, purposeful. The water slides through it with calm certainty, hugging the groove as if it has memorized the route. It doesn't splash for attention. It doesn't rush. It simply moves, steady and patient, like it knows that arriving slowly is still arriving. The stone beneath your feet shifts from broad steps to flatter slabs, and you walk carefully, because dampness turns granite into a polite warning. You keep your pace unhurried. You've learned by now that the mountain's gentle rules make life easier. Slow down, breathe, watch where you place your foot, and everything becomes less complicated. The channel leads you toward a small series of fountains, stone spouts and basins arranged in a simple line, each one catching water and passing it onward. The design is almost minimalist, but not in the trendy, bragging way. It's minimalist in the ancient sense. Nothing extra, nothing wasteful, everything doing its job quietly. You pause beside the first basin and watch the water fall into it. The sound is small, steady, soothing. It's the kind of sound that would be turned into a relaxation track with an embarrassing title like Waterfall Peace for Overthinkers. And yet, standing here, it feels honest. The water's rhythm matches your own breath. Inhale, trickling. Exhale, trickling. Your body begins to sync with it without you needing to try. You dip your fingertips near the edge where water gathers, not to disrupt, just to feel. It's cold, mountain cold, cloud-fed cold, and it wakes your skin while leaving your mind soft. You draw your hand back and let the chill linger on your fingers. The sensation is grounding, like touching a truth that doesn't argue. Beyond the fountains, the terraces continue, and the mist keeps shifting, changing what you can see from one moment to the next. But the water remains dependable. Even when the cloud thickens and the far view disappears, the channel still leads, the basins still receive, the trickle still sings its quiet song. You begin to understand how much comfort there is in a system that works without drama. Nearby, you notice people moving again. Figures in layered clothing, steady on damp stone. One passes with a woven basket, pausing briefly near the channel as if checking that the water runs clean. Another traces a finger along the stone edge and continues on, satisfied. There's no fuss, no frantic tinkering, just routine maintenance, done with the calm of someone who respects what water means here. You let yourself imagine the daily ritual this could become. walking the line of fountains, hearing water before your eyes fully open, washing hands in cold basins, filling vessels, carrying what is needed back to terraces and homes. The thought wraps around you like a warm blanket, because routines like that don't just provide water. They provide structure, and structure is one of the gentlest forms of safety. Your mind, always eager to sprint ahead, slows down again. You watch the waterfall. You watch ripples spread across the basin's surface. You notice how the ripples catch faint light when the mist thins, small crescents of brightness, then gone. You listen to the trickle's steady cadence until it begins to feel like it's washing your thoughts clean. A sleepy chuckle escapes when you realize how much you've paid for bottled water in airports, as if hydration is a luxury product. Here, water is treated with reverence because it's vital, not because it's branded. The stone channels don't have a logo. The basins don't have a marketing campaign. They simply work, quietly, with a dignity that makes your modern fussiness feel a little silly. You move along the fountain line, basin by basin, letting the gentle repetition soothe you. Each spout is slightly different. Each basin holds water for a moment before passing it onward. The sequence feels like a lesson in steady giving. Receive, hold, release. You let the lesson settle into your chest. You realize you've been trying to hold everything, worries, plans, emotions, without releasing. The water shows you another way. Let it flow. Let it move through. Let it go where it needs to go. Your breath deepens again, and the altitude feels less like an opponent, more like a quiet reminder to respect your limits. You place your hand on the stone wall near the channel and feel the cool dampness seep into your palm. Steady, like the mountain is lending you its calm. When you finally step away from the fountains, you carry their sound with you. The trickle becomes a background rhythm under your steps, under your breath, under the mist's soft movement. And as you walk onward through the cloud-wrapped citadel, you feel your inner world begin to match the outer one. Simple, steady, quietly moving forward. You leave the line of fountains with the trickle still ringing softly in your ears, and the sound follows you for a while the way a good breath does. Steady, quiet, refusing to hurry. The stones under your feet stay damp. The mist stays close. Your quinoa warmth stays tucked in your belly like a small, sensible lamp, which is helpful, because the mountain air keeps brushing your skin with cool hands. The path bends, then narrows, and you feel the citadel's mood shift. Terraces and channels feel like working muscles, practical, clever, built to hold life on a steep slope. Now the space ahead feels like a held breath. The cloud thins just enough to show walls arranged with extra care, doorways that frame shadow, and stone that seems to listen. A person moves ahead of you, emerging from the mist the way a lantern emerges. First a shape, then a steadier presence. They don't wave you down or rush you along. They simply walk with a calm that makes your own body want to match it. Their pace is modest, perfectly suited to thin air and slick stone, and you drift behind them as naturally as water follows a channel. Your mind tries to label the situation, but the mountain politely ignores your need to categorize everything. At a fork, the person slows. One path climbs toward higher terraces, the other slips toward a quieter cluster of walls. They don't point like a tour leader. They shift their weight toward the quieter route, then take the first step as if inviting you into a slower kind of attention. You go with them because you have learned the only thing rushing gets you up here is a dramatic heartbeat. A doorway appears. Simple, rectangular, perfectly fitted, and beyond it a courtyard where mist pools like milk. The person pauses at the threshold, waiting without staring. Your breath catches briefly from the altitude, and you take the time you need. No one makes it awkward. Even the cloud seems patient. Inside, the space holds you. Walls shape corners that collect shadow. Every time the mist thins, pale light touches the stone and fades again. The person ahead moves with quiet respect. No careless hands, no loud footsteps. And you mirror the care because reverence is contagious when it isn't forced. A small hand motion. Fingers relaxed, palm angled slightly downward, is enough to slow you further. You shorten your stride. Your shoulders soften. Your breathing finds a rhythm that fits the place. You don't need a lecture on what is important here. The gesture says, notice and don't trample. You pass along a curved stone wall, the curve so deliberate it feels like a bowl turned sideways. It seems designed to catch something, sunlight, warmth, meaning without spilling it. The mist opens for a moment, and a thin beam slides across the curve, then disappears. You watch it the way you watched ripples in the fountain basins. Arrive, shimmer, go. Your nervous system understands this lesson instantly, even if your mind wants to overthink it. You continue, guided by presence. The person's feet choose the safer stones. They pause before a slick step, giving you time to place your foot carefully. They never push. It's guidance with no pressure, and your body responds by relaxing. Ahead, a carved stone rises from the ground, larger, more intentional than the terrace blocks, set where the earth feels especially stable. The person stops a respectful distance away, and you stop too. Mist curls around the stone's edges, making it seem half floating, half anchored. You sense, without anyone explaining, that attention once gathered here. Time measured by shadow, seasons noticed, gratitude practiced. The stone doesn't demand belief. It asks only for quiet. You notice how your own hands have gone still, no longer reaching for pockets or screens, just resting at your sides as if they finally trust the moment. Your breath slips in and out with a slow honesty, and the person ahead waits until it settles, offering a tiny nod that feels less like approval and more like companionship. An unspoken reminder that you are allowed to take up time. The person moves again, leading you through a narrow passage where the walls feel closer, more protective. Your sleeve brushes damp stone. When the passage opens, the mist parts just enough to reveal the terraces below. Green steps descending into pale distance, and a suggestion of the valley beyond, deep and quiet. The person lifts an open hand toward the view, not in triumph, but like an offering. Remember, you are held by something larger, and it is not asking you to perform. Your chest loosens. A small, sleepy chuckle stirs, because your serious problems look different when you're surrounded by cloud and stone and patience. The mist closes again, gentle as a curtain. The hand lowers. The moment ends without fanfare, which somehow makes it more sacred. You follow back into the paths, moving at the pace your breath allows, carrying the quiet lesson like warm soup in your ribs. Meaning can be shown without words, and guidance can feel like kindness instead of control. You leave the narrow passage and return to the broader paths, still moving in the careful rhythm the mountain has taught you. Step, breathe, soften, step. The mist stays close, but it no longer feels like a curtain hiding secrets. It feels like a shawl laid over your shoulders, politely asking you to keep your urgency quiet. Your lungs continue their honest negotiation with the altitude, and you let them. The person who guided you a moment ago drifts away along another route, their presence dissolving into cloud without ceremony. You do not chase after them. You simply keep walking, letting the lesson stay where it belongs. In your pace, in your breath, in the way your feet land gently on damp stone. Ahead, a darker band forms through the mist and resolves into people moving along a terrace edge. They are not hurrying. They are simply doing what needs doing, and the steadiness of it calms you more effectively than any clever advice ever could. Woven baskets ride on backs and hips, supported by straps that cross shoulders in practical angles. The baskets swing slightly with each step, a soft pendulum motion that turns the path into a slow lullaby. You follow at a respectful distance. Cloud beads on the basket weave and glints when light slips through. Hands rest on rims for balance. When the path narrows, the line compresses and pauses as one, then flows forward again. No one needs to speak. The mountain has trained everyone in the same language: breath, balance, patience. The terraces beside you look different now that you have watched water run and felt quinoa soup settle warmth into your belly. You see the hillside as a living system rather than a view. Soil darkens where it has been turned. Plants gather near terrace walls where warmth lingers. You imagine the work that keeps these green steps alive. Carrying, tending, checking channels so water arrives without stealing the slope. Ordinary labor, repeated until it becomes quiet pride. Near a low wall, a small shelter sits tucked against the wind. Under it, bundles of fiber, alpaca or llama wool, cleaned and teased into softness, rest in loops that look like sleeping clouds. Cloth lies folded in calm squares, patterned with repeating lines that soothe the eyes. Someone sits low with hands busy, fingers moving in small, exact motions that build strength out of thread. You pause not to stare like a collector, but to let your mind learn the pace. Patient, consistent, kind. Weaving is time you can touch. Each pass of thread is a moment placed carefully where it belongs. The cloth grows by increments so small they would irritate your impatient side, and yet the result is strong enough to carry weight, wrap warmth around shoulders, bind a basket strap for years. A sleepy chuckle rises when you remember how often you demand instant results from yourself, as if growth should arrive with a notification sound. The mist thins in a long, lazy exhale and the valley appears below. Deep green, shadowed, vast. A river glints briefly like a thin ribbon of metal, then disappears behind cloud again. The scale returns that gentle smallness to you, the kind that loosens the grip of worry. Your problems do not vanish. They simply shrink to their proper size. Ahead, the basket line pauses at a terrace strip. One person kneels briefly, hands moving in the soil. Another lifts a small bundle, herbs perhaps, or a handful of grain, and places it into a basket with careful respect. You remember the quinoa soup warming your throat, those tiny grains that tasted like patience, and you see how that warmth starts here, in ordinary hands doing ordinary work with steady attention. A llama wanders into view again because of course it does. It steps onto the path with serene entitlement. You step aside automatically now, not even annoyed, just amused at how quickly you have accepted being politely managed by a creature with excellent boundaries. The llama pauses, chews slowly, and lets the mist dampen its coat, as if it, too, is practicing the art of unhurried living. When it moves on, you drift toward a widened area where small domestic order collects. Baskets are stacked neatly. Cloth is folded and tucked. Bundles are tied with simple knots that hold without drama. A small pot sits near coals, giving off a faint scent of herbs, and the steam rises the way your soup's steam rose. Quiet, steady, promising comfort without demanding applause. Someone stirs slowly, letting heat do its patient work. Someone smooths a fold, checks a strap, and continues on. You realize this is how the place stays alive in you. Not only through stone sanctuaries, but through the soft repeating acts that happen around them. The sacred and the ordinary share the same damp air. The same mist touches stone corners and woven baskets. The same patience that fits blocks together also fits days together. You take a slow breath and let that understanding settle. You are not here to collect moments like trophies. You are here to be carried by continuity. Water flowing through channels, warmth gathering in a bowl, hoof clicks fading into cloud, baskets swinging in steady arcs, cloth growing thread by thread. And as you continue along the shared path, quiet, careful, present, you feel drowsiness gather around you like the mist itself, softening every sharp edge you brought with you. You keep drifting along the shared paths with that soft sense of belonging. Mist on your cheeks, damp stone underfoot, baskets swinging in steady arcs somewhere nearby, and the quiet memory of quinoa warmth still glowing low in your belly. The mountain has been teaching you all evening. Slow is safe, calm is clever, and nothing here needs your dramatic interpretation. And then, because life loves a small plot twist, your lungs decide to remind you that you are not a native of thin air. It happens gradually at first, almost politely. You take a set of steps that climbs a little higher, following a stairway that narrows between low walls. The mist lifts in a pale blink and you catch a glimpse of terraces stacked below you like green quilts, the valley hinted at through moving cloud. Your body leans toward that view the way the mind leans toward hope. Just a little faster, just a little more eager. You take another step, then another, and your breath comes in shallower than you expect. It isn't panic yet. It's more like your lungs are reaching for a familiar depth and finding the air slightly out of reach. Your chest rises, but the inhale feels unfinished, like a sentence that never quite finds its period. You pause not from weakness but from intelligence. Your hand rests on stone, cool and damp, and you notice your heartbeat. It's not alarming, just insistent, thump, 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 like a steady knock from someone who would like you to stop pretending you are invincible. You let your shoulders drop. You take a slower breath. It helps, but not as much as you would like, which is exactly the kind of reality check that the Andes serve without apology. You keep moving because you're stubborn in a gentle way, and the staircase keeps offering itself one uneven step at a time. But now the effort has a different texture. Your legs feel heavier, as if someone quietly added small sandbags to your ankles. Your head feels slightly tight behind the forehead, not painful, just pressurized, like the air is asking a little more of you than your body wants to give. The mist thickens again, and the world becomes close and soft. Normally that would be comforting. Tonight it also means you can't see far enough ahead to judge how many steps remain. Your mind, which has been behaving beautifully for hours, attempts a brief relapse into worst-case thinking. It tries to measure the staircase, tries to guess how much higher you are, tries to turn breath into a performance metric. You notice that mental noise, and you let it pass without feeding it. You have watched water in stone channels receive, hold, release. You can do the same. The thought arrives. You hold it lightly. You release it. Still, your breath continues to feel thin. You inhale again, and the air seems cool and clean but insufficient, like a blanket that doesn't reach your feet. Your tongue feels slightly dry. You swallow, and your throat asks for warmth, for liquid, for the kind of steady comfort your quinoa soup delivered without comment. You stop on a small landing. The stone here is flatter, safer for resting. You shift your weight and sit, carefully, feeling the dampness through fabric. Your palms press onto your thighs. You do not collapse. You do not dramatize. You simply take the break your body is requesting, which is one of the most mature things you can do, and therefore naturally feels suspiciously unfamiliar. A llama wanders somewhere nearby. Of course it does. And the faint click of hooves on stone arrives and fades like a metronome you didn't ask for but secretly needed. The sound makes you chuckle, small and breathy, because it's hard to feel heroic when your audience is a creature who chews slowly and looks perpetually unbothered. The llama has never once tried to impress anyone with cardio, and it's doing just fine. You close your eyes for a moment and bring your attention back to the simplest task. Inhale, exhale. You let the inhale be shorter if it needs to be. You lengthen the exhale slightly, not because you're trying to hack your nervous system, but because your body seems to like it. The mist cools your face. Your breath warms the air just in front of your lips. You feel the gentle cycle of temperature, like alternating warm soup steam and mountain air. As you rest, you notice movement in the mist, figures passing along the path, steady silhouettes with baskets, the same quiet competence you've been watching all evening. One slows a little as they approach your landing, not to stare, not to judge, just to give space. A hand lifts in a small, calm motion, more a reminder than a directive, and you understand it immediately. Keep resting, keep breathing, don't rush back into motion just because pride is loud. You nod without words, and the figures continue, dissolving into cloud. The gesture stays with you like a warm hand on the shoulder. No pressure, just presence. You shift your posture slightly, sitting taller to make room for your lungs. Your fingertips tap lightly against your thigh, not anxious, just keeping time. The pressure in your forehead eases a fraction. Your heartbeat steadies. The mountain doesn't change. The altitude doesn't apologize. But your body begins slowly to meet the conditions. You think of the water channels again, how they guide flow rather than force it. You think of the terraces holding soil in place, not by fighting gravity, but by cooperating with it. You think of weaving thread passing through again and again, building strength by repetition, not by speed. The place has been giving you the same instruction in a dozen forms, and now your body asks you to apply it directly. slow down, and you will be fine. You take another breath, and it lands a little deeper. You don't celebrate. You simply notice the way you noticed ripples in a basin, and you let that small improvement be enough. You remain seated a little longer, letting the quinoa warmth inside you feel like proof that you're supported. You imagine another bowl, another sip of steady broth, the simple comfort of warmth and salt and grain. When you finally stand, you do it slowly. Your legs protest briefly, then cooperate. You place one foot on the next step and test your balance. The stone is slick, the air thin, but your mind is calmer now. You take one step, then pause. You take another. Your pace becomes smaller than pride. You are still a little breath thin, still aware of your limits, and that awareness is not a failure. It's the mountain asking you to be honest. You accept the request. You keep moving gently, and in the mist, under the soft click of distant hooves and the remembered trickle of water, you carry a quiet promise to yourself. You will not force this place, and you will not force your body. You will go as slowly as it takes. You keep your promise the way you keep your footing, one careful placement at a time. The next steps do not feel easier, but they feel possible, which is enough. You pause when your breath asks, not when your pride allows. A wall corner becomes a resting place. A terrace edge becomes a seat. The mist stays close, narrowing the world down to what you can handle right now, and you accept that smaller horizon. The path angles gently downward, away from the higher steps that made your chest feel tight. As you descend, you hear water again. First a suggestion, then a steady trickle. Your shoulders loosen before you decide to relax. Water means rhythm. Water means something here is dependable. The fountains appear in fragments as cloud slides past. Each stone basin holds water briefly, then lets it go onward, calm and certain. You stop beside the nearest one and rest your fingertips on damp stone. The chill is immediate and clean. You watch ripples spread, then flatten, and you let your breathing copy that pattern. Expand, soften, settle. A few figures move along the path with baskets balanced on straps, passing without fuss. One shifts wider on the stones to give you space, the same simple etiquette you offered the llamas. A small hand motion, palm angled downward, suggests patience rather than urgency. Contains no judgment, only permission. You close your eyes and count a few breaths without turning it into a performance. Inhale, modest and honest. Exhale, longer, like letting a heavy coat slide off. The mist cools your eyelids. The fountains keep their quiet song. Somewhere down the path, a hoof clicks once, then fades, and you almost laugh at how the llamas keep supervising your pace. When you begin walking again, you choose the gentler route with deliberate humility. Your steps shorten. Your pauses become frequent and ordinary. You stop trying to push through, and in response your lungs stop acting like they are being chased. The air is still thin, but it feels less like an opponent and more like a boundary you can respect. Warmth reaches you before the shelter does. Steam carries an earthy scent, familiar now, and your body leans toward it with relief so immediate it becomes a sleepy chuckle. Of course, your grand ancient adventure improves the moment hot soup becomes possible. You follow the scent around a low wall and find the same tucked-away corner where practical comfort lives quietly beside famous stone. A bowl is placed into your hands again with unhurried ease. No speech is needed. The warmth presses into your palms and convinces your nervous system to unclench. You bring the bowl close and breathe the steam first, letting it soften your throat. The smell is grains and herbs and clean mountain water turned into broth. The first sip lands like a small rescue. Heat moves through your mouth and down into your chest, and you feel your breath meet it halfway, less resistant now. You swallow slowly, not rushing even comfort. The quinoa grains settle in your stomach like tiny anchors, each one a quiet reminder that steadiness can be built from small, repeated acts. You eat the way the fountains work. Receive, hold, release. A spoonful comes in. You pause. You breathe. You let it settle. Another spoonful. Another calm exhale. Your forehead pressure eases. Your legs, still heavy, begin to feel less like they are carrying sandbags and more like they are simply tired, which is a normal human thing. The mist drifts at the shelter's edge in slow waves, thickening and thinning. You realize your body has been doing something similar, tightening under effort, loosening under rest, searching for balance. The soup tips that balance toward ease. The warmth makes the air feel less sharp. A memory surfaces and makes you smile. The solemn moment you stepped aside for llama traffic like a respectful citizen of a woolly kingdom. That was not only funny, it was training. Yield, wait, continue. You are practicing the same sequence now, except the obstacle is invisible and internal. Your own physiology is asking for the same respect you offered to hooves and damp stone. You keep eating until the bowl is nearly empty, and you notice how your thoughts have softened. They no longer jab at you with anxious questions about coping. This is not a race. It is an evening of careful steps, water sounds, and warm food in your hands, and you are doing it correctly simply by being here. When you set the bowl down, you keep your hands near it a moment longer to steal the last heat. You breathe in again, and the inhale arrives with less resistance. It is not perfect. It does not need to be. It is steady enough, and that steadiness feels like the mountain quietly nodding. You stand slowly, as if you are made of careful pieces that deserve gentle handling. You place your feet on damp stone and test your balance. The path ahead is still wrapped in cloud, still threaded with stairs and terraces, still governed by thin air, but you feel patience return like a familiar garment. You do not look for the whole route. You look for the next few steps. You take them and you pause when needed. And as you leave the shelter, carrying warmth in your belly and calm in your breath, you realize the small problem did not require heroics at all. It required the oldest solutions on Earth: rest, water, food, and a pace that respects the mountain. You step back into the mist with a bowl's warmth still glowing inside you, and for a while the mountain seems satisfied with your new pace. Your feet land softly. Your shoulders stay low. Even your thoughts behave, drifting like cloud instead of clattering like loose coins. Then the weather shifts the way mountains like to do, without asking and without caring about your hair. A cooler breath slides through the citadel, and the mist thickens into something heavier. Droplets gather on your eyelashes again, but now they don't feel like a gentle curtain. They feel like the beginning of rain, thin at first, almost teasing, as if the sky is checking whether you're paying attention. You are. You slow down another fraction. The first real sprinkle arrives so quietly you almost miss it. It lands on stone and darkens it in patches. turning steps into slick little warnings. It lands on grass and makes the terraces shine. It lands on your sleeves and cools your skin through the fabric. The sound is barely there, more a whisper than a patter, but it changes the mood. The mountain becomes quieter, and the quiet becomes deeper. You watch how people nearby respond, because locals don't waste energy being surprised by predictable things. A strap is tightened. A basket is pulled closer to the body. A woven cover is drawn over a bundle with one smooth motion. Someone lifts a hood or shawl with a practiced flick that doesn't interrupt their breathing. No drama. No annoyed flailing. No offended stare at the sky, as if weather should behave like customer service. You take the hint. You tug your layers snug around your neck. You tuck your hands nearer your body, not to look tough, but because cold fingers make sloppy footsteps. You test the next stone before committing your weight. The mountain rewards this with continued stability, which is honestly all you can ask for from a wet staircase in the clouds. Mist and rain blend until the world feels like damp velvet. Terrace edges blur. Doorways soften into darker rectangles. Stone walls deepen in color, absorbing water the way your mind has been absorbing calm. Your breath shows faintly now in the cooler air, and you catch yourself watching it the way you watched the fountain basins. Appear, expand, vanish. You drift toward the channels again, because water systems feel extra comforting when the sky adds more water to the plan. The trickle is a little louder, as if the rain has joined in. Basins fill and empty with the same patient rhythm. Receive, hold, release. Only now the lesson arrives with emphasis. You stand close enough to hear the small music of it and let your breathing fall into step. The ground grows slicker. You keep your center of gravity low and your steps short. Your fingertips graze a wall for balance. Cool, damp granite steadying you without complaint. Your shoes make soft taps and tiny squeaks, and you keep them quiet, as if silence itself is part of the etiquette here. A brief moment of clumsiness arrives, because you are still human and the mountain is still a mountain. Your foot lands on a smoother slab and slides a fraction forward. Your body tenses for a heartbeat. Your brain tries to launch a dramatic montage, and then your other foot catches. Your hand finds stone, and you recover with nothing more than a sharper inhale and a private, embarrassed smile. You don't fight the wobble. You just learn from it. The rain stays light, never turning into a storm, just enough to make everything shine and to make the air smell like wet earth and clean stone. That scent rinses your mind. Greens deepen under moisture. The fog makes the citadel feel more secret, more intimate. Famous places are often loud with attention, but tonight Machu Picchu feels like it's pulling you closer and whispering, quietly, that you can rest here. You notice the micro adjustments around you. A basket cover shifted again to keep herbs dry. A quick glance down a step before weight transfers. A pause in a sheltered pocket where a wall breaks the wind. Everyone moves like water itself, finding the easiest line, the safest edge, the calmest hollow, because resisting the mountain would be a waste of breath. A sleepy chuckle rises in your chest, because this is the opposite of how you handle inconvenience at home. There, a minor change can turn you into a stressed-out philosopher. Here, the sky gets damp and everyone simply adapts. No tantrum, no heroic resistance, just gentle changes and continued life. The mist thickens once more, and the far view disappears completely. No valley, no distant river ribbon, no panorama to prove you were here. Only stone, green, water, and a soft rain that makes everything quieter. And somehow, in that reduced world, you feel more satisfied. It's easier to be present when the horizon is close. It's easier to be gentle when the air itself asks you to slow down. You keep walking, careful, warm enough, breathing steadily, letting the rain polish the ruins and soften your thoughts. The mountain's lesson repeats in a new form. Don't fight the weather, don't fight your body, don't fight the pace. Just move with it and let the night carry you forward. The rain stays light but persistent, and the mist grows thicker, turning the paths into pale corridors. The stones are darker now, slick in places, and the terraces shine with wet green. You keep your steps short and careful, letting the mountain set the tempo. It feels almost cozy, until the cloud decides to play a small trick on your sense of direction. You follow what seems like the natural curve of the path, guided by terrace edges and low walls that appear and vanish. The world is close, so close that everything beyond a few meters feels theoretical. Normally you would compensate by over-planning, but tonight you've been practicing trust. Trust the stone, trust your breath, trust the quiet flow of the place. You take a gentle turn between two low walls, then another, and the path dips slightly. The air here feels cooler, as if it gathers in this pocket. The trickle of water is still somewhere nearby, but now it's softer, muffled by rain and distance. You keep walking, waiting for the next familiar landmark, the fountains, the shelter, the terrace junction where you paused before. But the mist refuses to cooperate. It gives you only damp stone and soft whiteness. A small worry arrives, not dramatic at first, just a little tightening under your ribs. You stop and look around. Walls, steps, a terrace edge, a patch of grass. All of it could be anywhere in the citadel. The place is famous for its layout, but the cloud has turned fame into a gentle blur. Your mind tries to do math. How many turns have you taken? How far have you walked? Which way is higher ground? You feel the old impulse to push forward quickly, to solve it by movement. But the rain has made the stones slick, and the altitude has already reminded you that rushing is not your friend. So you do the smarter thing, the kinder thing, you stop fully. You plant both feet wide enough for balance. You place one hand on a wall and feel its cold, wet steadiness. You take a slow breath, then another. The mist beads on your eyelashes and cools your cheeks, but you let the sensation ground you. You remember the water channels, how they guide flow instead of forcing it. You remember the fountains, receive, hold, release. You apply the same principle to your thoughts. A worry arrives. You hold it lightly. You release it. Your breath steadies. The tightness eases a fraction. The rain continues its whisper. You listen more carefully now, because listening is often more useful than staring when the world is foggy. At first, you hear only your own breath and the faint patter of drizzle on stone. Then, beneath it, a softer rhythm. Footfalls. Not loud, not hurried, just steady steps approaching along the path behind you. You turn slowly, careful not to slip. Through the mist, silhouettes form. Two figures moving with baskets close to their bodies, hoods or shawls drawn against the damp. They do not startle at your presence. They simply slow when they see you, as if this is an ordinary part of the mountain's day. Someone pauses, someone waits. The path rearranges itself politely. One figure lifts a hand in a small gesture. Palm open, fingers relaxed. An unspoken question. "Are you okay?" You give a small nod. You don't need to pretend you aren't unsure. You aren't in trouble. You're simply in cloud, and cloud makes direction feel like a rumor. The figure steps to the side and points, not sharply but gently, with a slow movement of the arm toward a slightly higher route. Then they begin walking that way with no urgency, the invitation clear. Follow if you want calm certainty. You follow. Your body immediately relaxes with the relief of simple guidance. Not because you were lost in a dangerous sense, but because uncertainty is tiring, and tiredness is what you're trying to soothe. You place your feet carefully behind them, stepping where they step. Their pace is modest, perfectly fitted to wet stone and thin air, and you match it without effort. The mist thins for a second, and you catch a glimpse of a familiar terrace curve, the one that felt like a bowl turned sideways. Then it's gone again, but the brief recognition is enough to reassure you. The path rises slightly, and you begin to sense the layout returning. That gentle climb, that subtle widening where people tend to pause, that angle where the wind shifts. You pass near a channel, and the water's trickle grows clearer. The sound is like a thread stitching the citadel back together for you. You breathe, and your chest loosens again. Your mind stops trying to calculate and starts returning to simple noticing. Damp wool, woven straps, the soft swing of baskets, the darker color of wet stone. At a junction, the figures slow. One makes a small motion toward a wider path, one you recognize as leading toward the fountains and the shelter area. They don't wait for thanks. They simply continue on their own route, dissolving into mist as naturally as they arrived. You stand there for a moment, letting gratitude settle without needing words. The small problem resolves the way most gentle problems should, with patience, listening, and quiet help that doesn't demand a story about it. You exhale long and soft, and a sleepy chuckle lifts in your chest because you realize how easily your brain tries to turn fog into a crisis. You step onto the familiar path again, moving carefully, calmer now. The rain still whispers, the mist still holds you, but you are not worried. You are guided, returned, and gently reminded that in a place like this, being unsure for a moment is not failure. It is just part of wandering in clouds. You continue along the familiar route with the kind of relief that doesn't need celebration. The path feels steadier now, not because the stones changed, but because your mind has stopped gripping them like a test. Your breath keeps a calm rhythm. Your shoulders stay low. The rain remains a whisper, and the mist remains close, but you're no longer looking for certainty in the distance. You're letting it arrive one step at a time. Then the light changes. It doesn't happen with a dramatic curtain pull. The Andes don't do cheesy stagecraft for your benefit. It happens the way good mornings happen. Slowly, politely, almost shyly. The cloud thins in one direction, and a softer brightness gathers behind it. The mist begins to glow rather than merely hover, and you notice the stone around you shifting from deep wet gray to something slightly warmer, as if the mountain is remembering what sunlight feels like. A pale beam slips through and lands on a terrace strip. The grass brightens, each blade catching tiny droplets that sparkle for a brief second, like the hillside is wearing a quiet necklace. Then the beam slides onward, and another patch of green lights up, and suddenly the terraces look less like a secret and more like a gentle revelation. You stop because your body understands what your brain often forgets. When beauty arrives, you do not need to chase it. You just need to be still enough to receive it. The light continues to open. Not fully, not like a clear sky postcard, but enough. Enough to show the shape of the citadel more clearly. Walls stepping around courtyards, stairways climbing in patient lines, doorways framing shadow like calm rectangles. The mist still drifts, still softens edges, but now it does it with brightness behind it, turning everything into a moving watercolor. Your chest loosens further, and you feel something warm rising that isn't only from soup. It's that gentle internal lift that happens when your nervous system decides you're safe. You take a slow breath and let it land deeper than it has all evening. The air is still thin, but it's clean, and with the sunlight filtering through, it tastes almost sweet. A sleepy chuckle slips out of you, quiet and involuntary, because you realize how hard you worked earlier, how you tried to push through altitude, how your mind briefly turned fog into a crisis, how you sat on damp stone and negotiated with your lungs like a stubborn manager. And now, as if rewarding your humility, the mountain offers a glimpse of gold on green and says, gently, yes, you're doing fine. You start walking again, but slower than before. The light makes you more careful, not less, because now you can see the slickness on stone more clearly. Wet steps shine. Terrace edges gleam. You place your feet with respect and keep your hands near walls when the path narrows. The terraces are luminous now. The droplets on grass catch the light and let it go. Catch it again. Release it again. Tiny, patient repetitions that mirror everything you've been practicing. Receive, hold, release. You watch them the way you watched ripples in the fountain basins, and your mind quiets even more. A llama appears again, drifting into the newly softened light like a creature that belongs in paintings. Its wool looks darker where rain has dampened it, and brighter where sunlight catches the curls. It steps across stone with the calm entitlement of someone who knows the mountain is not a place for hurried drama. You step aside automatically, and the reflex makes you smile. Your body has learned this etiquette now. Yield, wait, continue. When the llama passes, the hoof clicks sound sharper in the clearer air, then soften as it moves back into mist. You follow the sound for a second and feel oddly comforted by it, like the mountain's own metronome reminding you to keep the pace gentle. Further along, you see people moving with baskets again, their outlines clearer now in the light. The woven straps show their patterns. The basket weave looks rich and tight, shining slightly with moisture. The figures pause briefly near a terrace strip, adjust a cover, check a bundle, then continue. Their movements look even more graceful in sunlight, not because they're performing, but because the light is kind to ordinary competence. You feel a quiet respect for that kind of life, work done steadily without announcing itself. A life shaped by weather that changes quickly, by altitude that demands pacing, by systems, terraces, channels, woven straps that keep everything in balance. And you feel your own life, wherever it waits below, begin to seem less like a frantic race and more like something you can structure gently, if you choose. The mist keeps shifting, so the sunlight arrives in patches. A courtyard brightens. A wall corner glows. A doorway turns into a dark frame against light. The citadel becomes a series of revealed moments rather than one single view. That suits you. You've learned tonight to sip, not gulp. You wander toward a slightly higher vantage point where the terraces step down more dramatically. The valley opens again for a brief stretch, deep green, shadowed, vast, then softens as cloud drifts back in. But even the brief opening is enough to make your heart feel light. Not racing now, just lifted. You breathe in, and the air fills you with calm. You breathe out, and your shoulders sink. Another quiet chuckle rises, because you realize you came here expecting a dramatic spiritual transformation, and instead you are being taught simple lessons. Eat warm soup, respect your breath, follow the path, accept help, let light arrive when it arrives. The sunlight continues to filter through as you keep walking, and with each step the world looks a little less like a mystery and a little more like a gentle invitation. The mountain isn't trying to impress you. It's simply showing itself in soft pieces, and you feel yourself growing sleepier, soothed by the slow flicker of gold on green. The light stays with you in drifting patches, never fully banishing the mist, just softening it into something luminous. The rain fades until it is more memory than weather, leaving wet stone shining and grass heavy with droplets. You keep moving at the same careful pace, and the citadel begins to feel like an evening house you've been living in for hours. Familiar corners, known turns, remembered textures. As the day leans toward dusk, the brightness changes again. It cools. The gold becomes paler, then silvery, and the shadows deepen in the doorways. The valley view appears less often now, as if the mountain is closing its eyelids. The air grows slightly colder against your cheeks, and your breath becomes more visible, a faint cloud meeting the larger cloud around you. You find yourself drawn back toward the stones that feel quieter, more held. Spaces where walls gather close and the paths narrow, where sound behaves politely and the mist seems to pause. It's not because you want spectacle. It's because you want that settled feeling again. The one that arrived earlier when guidance came without words and meaning lived in shape and silence. You move through a doorway and into a courtyard where the stones feel darker, older, more inward. The terrace greens are still nearby, but here the dominant color is wet granite and the texture of it. Smooth in places, sharp at corners, fitted so closely it almost disappears. Makes you think of patience turned into architecture. The mist thins just enough to reveal a broader arrangement of walls and steps. You sense how the place is organized like a thoughtful mind. Open spaces for gathering, narrower passages for movement, thresholds that slow you down. The design isn't only practical, it's psychological. It gently guides behavior, coaxing bodies into respect without needing rules spoken aloud. You stop at a wall where stone blocks meet in clean lines and run your eyes along the seam. There's a quiet thrill in noticing craftsmanship that has outlasted so much. But the thrill is muted, softened by the evening. It feels less like excitement and more like gratitude. The kind that settles heavy and warm behind your ribs. You wander farther, and the soundscape changes with each turn. Near terraces, you hear faint whine through grass and the occasional distant hoof click that seems to echo from another time. Near the fountains, you hear the trickle's steady pulse. Here, among tighter walls, you hear almost nothing but your own steps and your breathing. Even your footsteps feel softer, as if the wet stone absorbs their edges. In this hush, history feels present in an unusual way. Not as facts recited, not as a list of dates you're expected to remember, but as a sensation. The feeling of a place built for bodies that needed shelter, water, food, and meaning. You imagine mornings with mist like this, hands moving along channels, feet climbing these steps, baskets swinging, cloth being folded, quinoa being rinsed and stirred into broth. Ordinary life repeated until it becomes culture. The thought makes you smile gently, because it's easy to romanticize the past from a distance and forget that people were still tired, still hungry, still dealing with weather. They still had sore legs and damp sleeves and days when the cloud refused to show them the view they wanted. And yet they kept living, not with constant triumph, but with systems that worked and routines that held. You begin to notice the way thresholds shape your body. Before each doorway, you slow. Your shoulders angle slightly. Your foot searches for stable stone. It's as if the place itself teaches you humility at every entrance. You realize you've been practicing that humility all evening, yielding to llamas, resting when breath thinned, listening instead of panicking when the mist confused you. The citadel's silence has been training your nervous system the entire time, without ever needing to raise its voice. A cool breeze slips through a passage and touches your forehead, drying a few lingering droplets. It carries the scent of wet grass and stone, and beneath it, faintly, something earthy. Maybe smoke from a small fire in a sheltered spot, maybe herbs steeping. The smell reminds you of the quinoa soup again, and your belly answers with a soft warmth. Food as memory, memory as comfort. You reach a place where stone rises in a shape that feels deliberate, as if it once framed the sky. The mist is thicker now, so the sky is mostly pale gray, but you can still sense the openness beyond the walls. You stand there and let the evening settle. Your breathing is slow. Your eyelids feel heavier. The thin air no longer feels like a challenge. It feels like an invitation to stop wasting breath on unnecessary tension. No dialogue interrupts the moment. No announcement tells you what to feel. You simply stand in damp silence, and the place does what it does best. It lets you sense time as something wide and gentle. The stones are older than your worries. The terraces will outlast your anxious plans. The water will keep flowing through channels as long as channels exist. You take a slow breath and let your mind rest against that scale. You don't have to solve everything tonight. You don't have to carry every thought to the top of the staircase. You can be a body in a quiet place, warmed by soup memory and guided by the soft discipline of stone. As the light dims further, the mist grows denser again, and the courtyard becomes a soft gray room. You turn gently, preparing to drift back along the paths, and you carry with you a feeling that is almost like being held. History not as noise, but as a calm presence in the walls, in the terraces, in the steady water sounds that keep time for you as the evening deepens. You begin your farewell the way you have done everything here. Slowly, with respect for breath and stone and the quiet rules of the mountain. There is no grand moment where you declare that you have changed forever. The change is smaller than that, more like the way your shoulders now sit lower without you forcing them, or how your feet place themselves carefully by instinct, or how your mind has stopped demanding a full panoramic view in order to feel satisfied. The mist thickens again as evening settles, and the light cools into a gentle gray. Wet stone reflects what little brightness remains, giving the paths a soft sheen. The terraces fade into pale layers, green steps dissolving into cloud. It feels like the mountain is tucking the citadel back under its blanket, returning it to secrecy for the night. You take one last slow circuit along the familiar paths, not trying to see everything, just letting yourself pass through the places that held you. Your feet find the route toward the fountains, guided by remembered turns and the faint, dependable sound of water. The trickle greets you again, steady as ever, and you pause beside a basin as if greeting an old friend who never needed to talk much. You watch ripples spread across the water's surface, then settle. Receive, hold, release. The lesson has followed you through terraces, soup, breath, and weather, and now it feels like it belongs inside you. You breathe in, you breathe out, you let the day release its grip. A sleepy chuckle rises at the thought that you came to a legendary mountain city and ended up being trained by the simplest things. Water that flows, stone that holds, soup that warms, animals that refuse to hurry. It's almost insulting in the best way, like the universe reminding you that you don't need complicated solutions for everything. Sometimes you just need to stop pushing. You drift onward, toward the terrace edges where the hillside falls away into cloud. The valley does not open now. The mist keeps it hidden, as if sparing you one more moment of longing. But you don't feel deprived. You feel gently protected. The mountain is saying, "You've had enough beauty for one night. Let it settle." As you walk, you catch the faint movement of people in the cloud. Figures with baskets and woven straps, moving steadily toward their own evening routines. The sight makes your chest warm. They are not part of a performance. They are simply living near this place, weaving ordinary life through extraordinary stone. They taught you more than a speech ever could. How to move with weather, how to respect breath, how to keep going without turning everything into a crisis. A llama appears one last time, because of course it does, and it feels almost ceremonial now, like the mountain's quiet comedian making sure you don't take your farewell too seriously. It stands near the path, chewing slowly, unfazed by mist and damp, and you step aside with a soft grin. You have learned the etiquette. Yield, wait, continue. Your chuckle is small and warm, and it dissolves into the cloud. Your body feels pleasantly tired now, the kind of tiredness that promises good sleep rather than collapse. Your legs carry the weight of steps taken slowly and wisely. Your lungs have adapted to the thin air enough that breathing feels steady again. The quinoa soup sits in you like a gentle stone, warm and grounding. Even your thoughts have become quieter, as if they, too, are ready to descend. You follow the path toward the exit routes, guided by low walls and terraces that appear briefly, then fade. The wet stone under your feet stays slick in places, so you keep your attention close. Each step becomes a small act of care. You realize that care is the real souvenir you're taking. Not a photo, not a brag, but a new habit of gentleness toward your own body. When you reach a point where the citadel begins to feel like it is behind you rather than around you, you pause. You do not turn it into a dramatic goodbye. You simply stop and let gratitude settle. The mist wraps the ruins in soft gray, and the terraces blur into green shadows. The fountain's trickle is faint now, but still present if you listen. You place your hand on a stone wall one last time. It is cool and damp, steady and indifferent, and that indifference feels like kindness. The stone does not ask you to be worthy. It does not ask you to promise anything. It simply exists, holding its shape through weather and time, inviting you to borrow a little of its calm. You take a slow breath in. You take a slow breath out. You let the mountain keep its secrets. You let the night keep its quiet. And then you begin moving again, stepping away without rushing, carrying the citadel's soft discipline in your shoulders, the terrace's patience in your pace, the water's steady rhythm in your breath, and a small, private chuckle that reminds you. You survived the altitude, the rain, and your own overthinking, and you did it by slowing down. You begin the descent the way you began everything here, with one careful step and a soft breath that refuses to be bullied. The path lowers itself in gentle angles, and your knees notice the change with a quiet, grateful sigh. Mist still clings to the terraces, but now it feels like the mountain is escorting you out with a shawl around your shoulders, keeping you warm until you reach thicker air. Stone steps turn into longer stretches of sloped path, and the damp sheen on granite catches the last pale light. You place your feet with the same respect you offered the slick stairways earlier, letting your hand hover near a wall when the edge feels narrow. Your body carries the memory of the small problem you solved, breath thinning, pride quieting, and it stays obedient to the lesson. Slow is smart. A faint trickle returns, and for a moment you smile at how loyal water has been tonight. Channels and basins, receive and release, a steady rhythm that never asked you to be anything other than present. Even as you move away, your mind replays the sound like a lullaby. The tiny fall into stone, the ripples smoothing out, the calm certainty of flow. Your stomach feels comfortably heavy, anchored by the quinoa soup that keeps showing up in your memory like a warm hand. You can still taste its earthy simplicity when you swallow. Grain and broth and herbs. Nothing flashy, nothing performative, just nourishment that did its job. You realize that the soup and the terraces share the same logic. Small grains, small steps, repeated until they become strength. You pass a terrace edge where droplets still hang on grass tips, catching a faint shimmer from the sky. The valley remains hidden, but the absence doesn't sting. You've learned to accept what the mist chooses to show. You breathe, and the air feels a touch richer now, as if the mountain is slowly returning your oxygen with the gentleness of a host refilling a cup. Somewhere ahead, hooves click once, twice soft, unhurried, and you let out a tiny chuckle that warms your chest. A llama stands half silhouetted in cloud, chewing with serene confidence, as if it has been stationed here specifically to keep you humble. You step aside automatically. Yield, wait, continue. The ritual is familiar now, and in that familiarity there is comfort. As you move on, you notice your thoughts have become quieter companions. They no longer interrupt with urgent questions. They walk beside you, hands in pockets, content to observe wet stone and pale light. You feel the citadel behind you like a calm presence in your back. Walls fitted without fuss, terraces folded into green, water threading through stone. Still there, still steady, even as you leave. The path dips again, and the mist begins to thin in slow layers. Shapes sharpen. A longer stretch of steps, a low wall line, a patch of darker earth. Your breathing deepens almost without permission. You don't celebrate it, you simply let it happen. Your shoulders drop another notch, and you realize how much of your life is carried in those shoulders. How rarely you give them a reason to rest. You keep descending, and your tiredness turns sweeter, heavier, more sleep-shaped. Each step feels like a gentle closing of the day. You remember the rain polishing the stones, the momentary slip and recovery, the quiet help that guided you back when fog confused the route. None of it becomes a dramatic story. It becomes a simple sequence of care. Stop, listen, accept guidance, continue. At a bend, the fountains are no longer audible, and the silence changes. It is less sacred courtyard quiet and more ordinary evening quiet, the kind that belongs to paths leading home. You take a final slow breath of cloud-cooled air, and you imagine the people with woven baskets moving toward their own warm interiors, their own steady routines, their own bowls of something comforting. You don't cling to the ruins. You let them remain where they are, wrapped in mist, older than your worries. You carry only what fits easily. The rhythm of water, the patience of terraces, the warmth of soup, the comedy of llama traffic, and the sound of your own soft chuckles when you remember you tried to rush a mountain. By the time the path levels slightly, the air feels kinder, fuller. Your steps are still careful, but they are less cautious now, less guarded. You feel like someone who has been gently rearranged, not by a grand revelation, but by a series of small, steady permissions. You take one more look back, more a turning of the head than a ceremony, and the mist swallows the stone shapes again, returning Machu Picchu to its dream state. You face forward, continue down, and let the evening settle around you like a blanket that finally reaches your feet. And now you let the descent keep going inside you, even after your feet have found easier ground, because your body remembers what the mountain taught without needing to repeat it aloud. You feel the last cool mist on your skin like a clean cloth, and you imagine it slowly drying as you drift towards sleep, leaving only softness behind. Your breathing settles into a smooth, even tide, fuller now, kinder now, and each exhale feels like setting down a small bag you forgot you were carrying. In your mind, the terraces fold themselves one by one, green blankets laid neatly over the slope, and the water continues its patient work through stone channels, whispering receive, hold, release, until your thoughts start to do the same. Any worry that tries to rise is met by that calm rhythm, and it loosens and it passes and it is gone. The warmth of quinoa soup glows again in memory, simple and steady, spreading through your chest and belly like a lantern turned low for the night. You hear the distant, imaginary hoof click of llama traffic, not loud enough to wake you, just enough to make you smile, and your smile softens your whole face. Your shoulders sink into their natural place. Your jaw unclenches. Your eyelids grow heavier, as if the mist itself is pressing them down with gentle hands. Let the stone walls fade now. Let the courtyards dim. Let the valley stay hidden, because you have already received what you needed. You are safe. You are warm. You are allowed to rest. And as the last light dissolves into cloud, you drift deeper, slower, quieter, until even your thoughts become mist, and the night holds you in a calm, private whisper. Nothing is required of you now except sleep sweetly. End of story. Sweet dreams.